wonderful ladies with us tonight because we're going to have a lot of fun. Because have you ever thought about how energy where you live works? What the energy of color is, what the energy of architecture is, what the energy of design is? Well, we've got two experts here in Phoenix to talk to us about that. Catherine Hayes, a world-renowned architect and a friend of mine for many, many years. Kathy and I go way, way back, and she's just such a wonderful person. You know many of the things that she's done: Le Grand Blanche, Buck and Ryder, Farm and Craft, Chelsea's Kitchen, Arrogant Butcher, Kaleidoscope Juice, the Valley Ho, the Royal Palms. Holy cow. We could go on, right? We go on. She's been on HGTV, so she shouldn't be nervous being with us here tonight. And she's been on Phoenix Home and Gardens and all kinds of things. And she is just an extraordinary artist and an intuitive person. When she's working with her people, she intuits what they may need or want. And I'll tell you frankly, she works with people in a real way so that she's not one to take any bull. She gives you what she wants to give you. So it's good. It's good. And then we have the lovely and beautiful and glorious Karen Rapp with us tonight. And Karen is an interior designer extraordinaire. And she's been in business for over 30 years. And these two ladies came together because you worked out of your home and Kathy worked up near Le Grand Blanche, and they came together and they made this fabulous building that we are in tonight that would knock your socks off. So they've come together because they're such a great team. Karen has been all kinds of things, the Phoenix Home and Garden and Masters of the Southwest, and we could name drop a lot of names from here in Phoenix that all of you would know, but that's not nice, so we won't do it. So
just a little.
Just a little. So I just want to thank you both for coming. I mean, this is really nice because I've always been drawn. My mother was an interior designer, and she worked at Taliesin, not as an interior designer, but rather as a tour guide. She came out here in her retirement and did that. So she's always had a love for art and color. And when I was a young girl, our house was the best decorated house in the neighborhood, you know. And so how did you happen to decide to get into architecture?
I lived 3 blocks away from Frank Lloyd Wright's home and studio in Illinois on the west side of Chicago, and walked by his house every day. And at 10 years old, I asked my dad, why does that house look different in all these houses? And he said, because an architect, Frank Lloyd Wright, designed it. And I instantly thought, I want to be an architect.
And, you know, I'm not trying to reveal our age or anything, Kath, but
100 years ago.
and years ago, it was really a man's business. Like, there's more women in it now, but years ago, it was a man's world. And so you kind of broke into a man's world with this.
Yes. Even in high school, I was the only girl in drafting. In college, there were like 4 of us. Things like that. So,
and when we're talking about energy, angels, and by the way, please call and ask these ladies questions. The phone number is different tonight. It is, write it down, 602-840-2553, because we are in their studio. That's 602-840-2553. What I like about architects when we're talking about energy is that they have a balance between their right brain and their left brain, because not only do you have to be creative, but you have to be logical in order to make, you know, your drawings and everything. So it means that you've got a real balance between your right brain and your left brain. Whereas Karen, I don't know, maybe you're a little bit more right-brained, right? Because you're the creative flair, the you know, the color person. You know, tell us how you got into interior design.
Well, the way I got into interior design was from a small age. My parents were very progressive at their time. When we moved in, my father designed our home. He was a general contractor. We designed their home in 1964, and it was really contemporary. We had white terrazzo floors. It was a very contemporary house, floor-to-ceiling windows, and this was in Salt Lake City, Utah, which is very, very traditional. And they had a glass tabletop that he designed that was based after a Mies van der Rohe one. We had Herman Miller chairs, very stark. My grandmother was appalled because our living room was a glass fishbowl. And she said, everybody can see in there. In fact, my grandparents gave my parents money to buy drapes, and they bought, and my parents ended up spending it on landscaping instead. So, and then me as a child, we had a big driveway in the front, and I was used to seeing plants and things. And I used to, with my friends, because there's a lot of construction going on in our neighborhood, I would take the drywall, and we'd literally draw and play house on our driveway. Like I'd say, okay, here's my bedroom, here's my bed, here's the baby's bed, there's the kitchen, and we play in these
Oh, that's
plans
interesting.
on the driveway.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was exposed to interior design because at the time my grandmother, the one who wanted us to have drapes, had was the first time they moved from a home, my mother's home, to a condominium, and she had a designer help her.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember as a small girl, I was only 10, going into this incredibly, fabulous home where everything matched and was decorated, and I was so impressed. I mean, and at the time it was very, she called it French provincial, and it was all gold and powder blue at the time and cream. That was her color scheme. And she had an Edward Fields rug, and she had slab marble countertops in her kitchen, and Cheryl Wagner gold plated faucets. And
That's a big deal.
I was, as a little girl, I felt like a princess. My father called it the Taj Mahal because it was way too fancy, but my grandmother loved it. She was very proud of it. And so it was at an early age I learned about interior design, and from that point on, I was a goner. I mean, it was a passion. It became a passion. So.
Well, you can look at Duffy tonight and see she's just
I like color.
Most colorful one in the
she's
room.
got beautiful colors on. Do you notice that when you see somebody? Like, would you guys look at Duffy if she was your first meeting for a client and say, "Oh, this is who this person is"? Like, do you size things up energetically like that?
100%. I don't know if you do though, but I do.
Lots of times I do. Like if Duffy came in and was going to do his design, yes, I'd go, okay, this is a woman who's not afraid of color.
Right.
But there's more to a space interior when you're living in it. I've had women that have dressed like Duffy personally, but they want their space to be really quiet and neutral and like maybe all white. I have a friend,
which is actually more of a cream. That's really more me.
No. You should see their house. Are you kidding me?
No.
Is the artwork colorful?
It's beautiful.
It's colorful and it's fun, but the walls are going to be one color. Now, her house has lots of different colors.
Purple bathrooms, red kitchen.
And that's great. I do mine with decorations. I love paintings. I love sculpture. I used to do sculpture, so that's why I love that aspect of it. So
it's just the background.
I do my color with paintings and all kinds of decorations.
And yourself.
And yourself.
So you
exactly.
plan on dressing with color.
We talk about the energy of homes, because what's in your home is your energy space. It's where you go. It's where you have to be comfortable. And feng shui plays a lot in it. And I think feng shui has been thrown around an awful lot, and so if you have this over here and this over here, and by the time you figure out what's supposed to be where, the house doesn't look like what you wanted. And so
that's right. And because it's an ancient study that would take us all our lifetime to actually really understand it, because I've worked with a lot of Asian people that have had that in their generation for years. So you can only pick and choose out of those things, frankly, the things that sort of resonate with you and resonate with just the people living in the house. Then I always try to say, at that point, you guys, let's just leave it alone and just kind of react our own selves and have the confidence to do that, not have to go right to those principles. But we do work with the principles a lot.
And I think a lot of it is just practicality. It's practical common sense.
Gut instinct and practical.
Yes, it is. It's intuitive.
Yeah.
I mean, the first project we worked on, they actually had somebody come, a feng shui, and there's a funny story about it that ended up being here, and things that we both brought from that. All I remember was that when you enter a house, the upper left-hand corner of that house was the money. That's all I remember. But that's where, whatever that was, either the master bedroom, but that's where the money was. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And then Kathy, remember what you heard from that about you yourself?
I know. I walked in black, right? And after this woman coming in, she came in from California, she said, "Don't ever wear black." Yeah. And I was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
That's interesting.
That is interesting.
And she was super positive about the house, and she showed us every single of the 3 spots she told us to get sort of the energy released from, all of us knew that before
Already
she
knew
got
that.
there.
Yeah.
Because you could feel it.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
already
you can
knew.
feel it.
And we knew kind of what to do, so it was kind of just confirming when she was there.
Mm-hmm.
But you also use all the elements within your design and
Well, and outside the sun, and how's the sun going to enter the
Yeah.
house in the morning? How's it going to set in the sun at sunset? How are so many of where you're going to place plants in the house? Where do you want some life, energy coming in, and where do you want to see it right when you enter a room?
Mm-hmm.
So
Restaurants. You do a lot of restaurants.
Yeah.
And here in Phoenix, there are restaurants that stay and restaurants that come and go, right?
Yeah.
And so, the energy of a restaurant is very important. It's not just the chef. It's not just the staff. It's not just the front or the back of the house. It's the whole ambiance of a restaurant. How do you go into a blank spot and say, I'm going to do this in this restaurant? Like, what is it that inspires you?
So many things. A couple of things is certainly that you just listen to everything the client says. And if he or she has 16 people with them, you just need to listen to everything they say, filter through it, and then look at the site, look at the orientation, choose where you want to have the patio, where you don't. We've got a very hot climate. I don't really like putting patios sometimes right in the front, so you walk by an empty patio during the summer. But frankly, it's an absolute blessing to be able to do it, because it isn't that. It's a completely blank space. Sometimes the building doesn't even exist, so you get to do the building. One of the things, right or wrong, I've made a decision a long time ago is because I grew up in a neighborhood that has such beautiful historical homes, that the restaurants that I've designed, I try to make them kind of legacy places that are going to feel like the community go-to place, that from grandma's birthday to confirmation to baptism, Chelsea's Kitchen is that. Buck and Ryder's that. Arrogant Butcher for downtown is it where all the guys from the businesses and girls go to at lunchtime? Can they go and get a beer afterwards? Those are things that make up our very soul of, we want to feel like we can go to a place that feels like our second home.
So that's an interesting way to verbalize it.
Although I see designing the restaurants, I want people to get a reprieve from their life. I want them to be entertained for a couple of hours. I want them to feel, however, like Chelsea's Patio. I want them to feel like they're never going to forget Chelsea's Patio and the great times they had out there, just because of the dappled light, because of the sunset. We took there was a building there. We knocked it down. We built the building closer to the canal so that we could say, let's celebrate the city's waterway. And I burned the bartenders for 2 years while the trees in the patio went up. I kept literally giving them SPF 32 because they were getting sunburn in the windows. I'm like, give me a year and those trees will grow and it'll be fantastic. and they did,
Can I ask you a question about restaurants? Because of the change in attitude to restaurants with them being as noisy, because that's part of the design. Is that intentional?
It is intentional, and sometimes it's not, very welcome. But there is, a lot of conversation between all the different restaurant people that we've worked with, that they want to have a level of high energy. And how do you then create the booth to have some sound absorption? Do you put some lamps in there? Do you get some draperies in there? Things that will absorb it some, but that when you walk in, you feel like you've arrived at the party. And people want to arrive at the party, and then do they want to walk through the entire place to be seen? There's so many dynamics, literally, that you want to try to bring out in people in those moments as they even move through a restaurant. They get to see their friends. They can hide in a booth, or they can be in the middle of the place. And we also want them to come back often, and really
so
all the
they're
time.
Like their go-to restaurant. That's the
It's
kind of.
too.
I mean,
I've
been
4
to
days a
many of
week.
your restaurants. That's the kind of feel it has. That you want to go back. It's your local restaurant. So
we create environments within the restaurant, so you can say, sometimes I'll sit in the bar, and sometimes I'll sit over here. And when I've got the family, I'll sit over at the 8-top over in the corner and know that I've got a little more quiet. So
you've
amazing.
also won Best Home 5 times. So we're not just talking about somebody that does restaurants. You've knocked it out of the park a few times on
I
homes.
love homes. I mean, it's such an intimate thing to do with people. You right or wrong, you find out everything about them, and you have to respect everything that they're saying. So many things that they say I think it's the first time sometimes that they say the things to themselves and to their mate. And you're in there as it's a very private thing to keep that confidence and then exceed their expectations in the spaces that you create for them, their children, their families, the legacy. I mean, almost every house I've ever designed, the people are still living in it. This isn't a I'm going to be in and I'm going to be out in a year. And they become their homes that they'll remember for generations. I've done homes for people now, a couple of couples for 20 years, then their next home for another 20 years. Amazing. I mean, huge responsibility to then do their summer home and all those memories. Somebody said in town, we've only grown up in your homes. We've only grown up in your environments. And they had their family in for the last home in Idaho that we did. And they were kind of saying, and you're knocking down a home that we actually loved from the 1930s, and so it's a huge responsibility for you to do a good job with this.
Like, who's hardest to please, husband or wife?
Oh boy, it totally brought.
That's a question for you
depends.
both. That's a
It
question for you
It
both.
totally depends.
It totally depends. It's on the personality.
And how do you do it when they have diametrically opposing tastes?
You back up and you ask them to figure it out.
Yeah.
Which isn't the way I did it the first few years. I thought I could get in there and referee. I don't referee anymore. I'm no good at it.
You pick and choose when you get to a certain level. You guys pick and choose, right? Like you don't. If you feel something isn't you're gonna be caught in the middle of something, you step back.
Oh yes,
right?
absolutely.
But you also feel some comfort in telling them what you don't like. A lot of times they don't know what they like, exactly how to put it together, especially with the other person, and yet they want to create a home. And so I say, then feel some peace at just telling me what you don't like, and I can go into the good stuff is.
Well, if you've ever remodeled or if you've ever had to redo your house and you have questions about it, call us at 602-840-2553 and have your questions. Because I'm always thinking, I see what Melinda does. She can put things together, and I think, oh, I can't do that.
You can.
Well,
We both have good taste. We just have different tastes.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, we have good taste. We just have different tastes.
Yeah.
But Karen, talk about the energy of light, texture, color, material, like the grid of it, the grid of your design.
Well, when we meet with a client, same with that, we always respect and I want to listen to what they have to say. I look at and I approach them, even when it's coming from the ground up, I look at the orientation of that room. So I know if it's an office area, like right now I'm working on a project and their office has a west window and a north window. So I know at that point, I'm going to but they've got a beautiful view of Camelback. So I want to make sure that they get the northern light, but at the same time they're going to get the light filtering from the west window. They don't need privacy, but they need it. So there's those type of things that you look at. What time of the day are they going to be working in there? The bedroom. A lot of times people, and I've never understood this, they always look at the view from their bed. And I go, okay, when are you going to be in bed looking at that view? It's at night. You don't see. Do you know what I mean? That's when you're
Unless you lounge around in the morning.
Exactly. Or you have this incredible view with the city light.
Yeah.
But I've had people that go through that, they want to maximize this view. And I actually had very early on, I had a client and he was all about the views. I mean, everything was all about views. And I go, how often do you sit in that chair and enjoy that view? Yes, you walk through the house. Once you get in the space, it's interesting how you're in the space, you're not necessarily looking view. I see that views they're more appreciated when you're outside, in an outside space. So in Arizona, we have the great opportunity of being able to create exterior living rooms and exterior spaces, which I think we use a lot. And I encourage people to do those spaces and make them so that they can be in them. We actually put in the house that we did together, they have it on the south side, and they entertain a lot. So we ended up putting heaters, and we went through the whole research of what kind of heaters were best at the time. And, everything's come a really long way as far as the technology of heating up spaces. But even, with our fires, just having the fires, that's one of the biggest things for me as an interior space, is that people have fireplaces and they'll have the TV. So what do you do? Because they really are exactly the same thing. The fireplace is the hearth of the home, and the TV has become the 20th century hearth of our home. I mean, it's where everybody gathers.
Unfortunately,
Unfortunately, absolutely. Except for my good friend Kathy, who doesn't have a TV.
Yay, Kathy!
I know. I always think, oh, that's amazing.
I like to read.
Yeah, she likes it, which is so much better. I wish I could be Kathy when I do that. But that fireplace. So at what point people sometimes, well, I want the TV over here and I want the fireplace here. Well, that makes it really tough because nobody wants the fire. They like to look at both of them at the same time. So again, figuring that out.
Are colors bad, like for a bedroom? Like, are you supposed to not have red in your bedroom? Are you supposed to not have certain colors? Like, is red an angry color? Is orange a juicy color? Is purple a spiritual color?
I think color plays more in eating and restaurants than it does in private things. One thing, and actually this is somebody who is not a
texture.
Designer.
You've got tons of texture in your fabrics.
Yeah, exactly. Textures, but when it comes to bedrooms, no, there isn't. I think a lot of it has to do whether it's feminine, masculine. It has more about the feeling of the room. Do you know what I mean? It's
I've heard many men say that, and a lot of times without their wife, I love that our bedroom is feminine.
Yes. Well,
and she's done a lot of beautiful feminine rooms that are just at that point where they're not really like, it's her room. No, it's just got a little sexiness to it and a little sensualness to it. And I've heard so many men walk out of that room and go, I like that room.
Right. Well, we have a great example of it. But
nice.
I heard one time it was that husband or your partner should feel a little bit uncomfortable coming into that room. Not necessarily be like, oh, okay, I can, sit here and eat, Doritos.
In other words, not to put their feet up on the bed.
Exactly. I mean, there's a little bit. It's like this is a.
Women are more sexual, so it has more of a sexual feeling to it.
So they're a little bit.
Which
is
fun for them.
Yeah, I think that's fun. We actually had a client that had husband, and she had 3 boys. She had 4 sons, and so she was the only girl. She was an only child, and then the only woman in this house, including the dog. And we ended up finding this, and we were at a Reps, came to our place and looking at it, and she fell in love with this leopard print fabric that it was green and pink in it. And we ended up doing like a green and pink bedroom with, mostly white. And it ended up being the place her sons loved to come the most.
That's
so sweet.
That's interesting.
No, it was really interesting. So again, in fact,
men are always looking to get back into the womb.
Exactly. It's true. And
she said they love that room.
Well, her husband really wasn't part of it. She let her do it. And I remember when we installed it, and he came in, he goes, when did we have a daughter? Where's our daughter? And she was like, no, this is your room.
And he loves it.
Yeah, he does love it.
So I've got a question for you. Does old furniture hold energy? Do old buildings hold energy? That's a question for old furniture and antiques and old buildings, guys. What do you feel when you're with old furniture and old buildings?
I actually feel a lot when I'm in old buildings, or even in buildings that aren't very old, but I sometimes find that I feel like something's happened in there, and I don't think about it a lot. I don't really let it penetrate me much, but it is odd, or not even surprising, I'd say, that many times later I find out what happened. And in the meantime, when I feel that way, I trust myself now, which frankly took a good 30 years to do in the business, is to be trusting of that. I don't have to talk to people about it, but in my own way, I can sort of clear it. Not only have I done it when I've just sort of cleared the lot, and then later found out that something did happen. I try to just move the energy around a little bit, and even how I'm going to let people walk into the room. Like I'll move the door into a bedroom. Let's just move this door, and I won't say anything, but it gives them the opportunity to have a new experience, to enter the room into another place they've never walked in before, and it seems to break what might have been potentially a little negative. And as far as like old historical buildings, I mean, I just got back from Oslo, Norway, and Stockholm and stuff, I stayed in an old convent converted into a hotel.
Wow.
And then I stayed in an old girls' school. And if those things don't hold energy, I don't know what does.
Ghost?
You know, I like running up the steps thinking of, because I went to all girls school for a couple of years in high school, and just that sort of same feeling of all these girls running up in their crazy teenage years and stuff like that, and that energy. You could still feel it in that building. I swear I felt like the walls were talking.
Interesting.
But it wasn't uncomfortable.
Spirits? Do you feel ghosts? Do you feel them, or do you connect?
They said when I asked at the concierge counter the next day, they said, "Oh, a lot of people think that they have ghosts," but I have to say I didn't feel it. I just felt like the spirit of lots of girls at that age. But
what about the convent? What was that like? Because that was a very interesting aspect for me.
I have an amazing respect for women that have made that decision. And so I've stayed in, frankly, a lot of convents from South Africa, all over the world. I have such a respect for the solitariness, the solitude, the prayerfulness, that I don't ever I feel nothing but peace when I'm in those places.
That's great.
Even if things tragic or hard happen. The struggle that they have. Those are their personal struggles. You make those decisions in your life. But generally, I'm at the most peace when I've been at one of the monasteries in the world or a convent.
And you've traveled a lot, because that's your thing, to see buildings, to see architecture in other places. And each culture holds its own energy.
So much. Amazing how much. And to be in a space and to see light come into it, and even evening fall. Many times when I go to restaurants, I'll go to a town and I'll go to 18 restaurants in 2 days. I go at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and just whiz through all these to watch the sunset in the places, because I think a restaurant should look beautiful in the day as much as it does at night. And that's a tricky and hard thing to do. And yet I really always want to accomplish it, so I want to see how other people have accomplished it.
Where's your favorite place to go to look at architecture?
Oh, I'd say Oslo, Norway right now, but it's just because it's it was astoundingly progressive and innovative and sustainable and responsible. But boy, every single place, I have to say, even from going to little beach towns, once you're in the fold of new experiences, I trust that my subconscious and my spirit are going to just sort of quickly pick up everything. I really can sort of graze the whole place, and I want to graze it because I want to see how it feels and what does it look like and how did it get to feel this way. Is it small? Is it large? Does it keep opening you up? Does it keep closing you down? Are there a ton of textures? So I have to say, absolutely every place. I just love traveling.
Karen, what do you look at the most whenever you go into different places, just say around the world?
Around the world. And I've been to some great, I've been to Egypt in Europe and all that. To me, it's the historic. I'm always amazed at how I look at this and I think the craftsmen that did these things and the engineering with what they didn't have at the time. I mean, it really had to have come from a spirit, had to have come from something far beyond that we know now. I mean, we've been taught, from those people, but these people did it from literally their soul, their spirit. When I traveled to Egypt, I mean, I couldn't keep my hands off those walls. I couldn't keep my hands because it's like, okay, my goodness, my hands touching a stone that was existing 5,000 BC, and that for us, for America, I mean, just the comprehension of that, the magnitude of that is just was amazing to me. And again, just that. You would ask me about antiques, I don't know if I feel the spirit as much as I feel the spirit of the person who built it and how they crafted it. And when you're looking at antiques, you open the door and you look at the dovetailing and how the drawers have been constructed. And they use it, we always think they were all built out of the same piece of wood. They're not. They've got all different types of wood. They'll do something different on the top and at the bottom, or on the sides. And on the legs, and they can be made, to stabilize different things. And the engineering that goes into those pieces and how they do it. There's a man that I work with here in Phoenix that in fact, his wife always used to say that he had a mistress, and his mistress was the antique pieces of furniture that he worked on because he
Mhm.
just literally
Yeah.
massaged
Loved
them
them.
and
Yeah.
loves them.
Mhm.
And I've had him reproduce some pieces for me, and he's reproduced. He did a dining room table where not one single nail was made in
Wow.
it. I mean, just the way he dovetailed and he put
Mhm.
things in, and joinery of it. Those things are just amazing to me, and I guess that's where I feel the spirit. It's
Mhm.
just that
Have you
the people
ever
there.
been in San Francisco and done that Victoria House tour, you guys?
No,
Have
All
you
the
I
ever
always
painted
done
wanted
lace.
to do
No,
that.
I wanted to do that
Oh my
too.
God! Talk about the energy. Most of those houses are owned by gay men
Mhm.
who have just done a beautiful job decorating, putting
Totally.
them together, and
Amazing.
restoring and keeping it
Mhm.
great. And it's so nice that they let people come into their homes. But some of those houses, just the energy and everything about it, the feeling of the antiques and the
Right.
and some of them have kept it pristine with the originals.
Mhm.
It was very interesting because in those days in San Francisco, they weaved a lot of Far Eastern.
Mm.
Oh,
They
absolutely. There's
weaved a
huge
lot of
influence.
Far Eastern pieces
Totally.
in with the Victorian pieces, and it's so interesting to
Mhm.
see that.
That
That was
eclecticism is
really
really cool.
interesting to me to see that. That's where one of the places where I was most moved by a space where I had that feeling of, oh, this resonates with me. I must have been, in a Victorian lifetime with that was all like, oh, that felt like something. Do you guys ever feel like a past life creeps in when you're doing anything?
I went to Paris for school and I was really young, and I walked those streets those first couple weeks as though I knew them. And I was very out of sorts, actually, a little bit. And then I had a friend come over from America, and he's like, "How do you know this so well so soon?" And I said, "I actually don't know." And I left it at that. I mean, I learned that city and ended up living there for a couple of years. And then years and years later, because I've gone back quite a bit, Karen and I had an amazing, one of those very best days of your life in Luxembourg Gardens, which was 10 years ago or something, where
Well,
we
more than
sat
12 years
in the
ago.
park and said, let's do a building, which is what we're sitting in right now.
Wow.
That took, we sort of stopped it. We talked about it. We didn't do anything. And then 2 years ago, we found precisely where you told us where the building was to be. And after we had released the whole thing to the universe, really, and said, I don't know where it's going to be, but she does, so I'll just pay attention. And then all of a sudden there's a for sale sign. And then I said, Karen, how about it? And she said, how about it? And we did it.
But going into design, and also especially into whenever you are trying to put together all of the interior, the combination of different cultures, is that something more and more that people are doing, as opposed I just want French look or I just want this look? So
Well, in interiors, it's more eclecticism is good.
yeah.
I always was taught in architecture you want to be more honest and have the integrity of the architecture. Eclecticism isn't as good in architecture, but interiors it is. And what I love about eclecticism in interiors is that it helps the interior spaces reflect who lives there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've had people a lot of times they'll say we want this accessorized, and I go, I'm not shopping until you bring out every single thing behind your cupboards. And then I take their items and I play with their items, and they're amazed.
Treasures from trips.
Yeah, treasures from trips and all their
stories
travels.
behind every one of
they
them.
don't even. Oh, you want to use that old thing? I go, absolutely. Look at the lines and the balance. The proportions of it. It's perfect. Let's make this into a base of a lamp. This would be a great base for the lamp, or this would be a great vase for flowers or something. So those are things that when you work with somebody and you rediscover with them their own treasures.
So
I think that means something, that you bring that out and use it, because people, they're fond of their old stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it was their
frankly,
grandmothers.
they've sort of forgotten some of it.
Yeah.
And it was their grandmothers.
Or they don't know how to place it.
Well,
So, yeah.
And for me, I love to hear the stories.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness.
And
What's this doing? How long has this been in that drawer?
Continuity of family. It has that
Exactly.
energy of family.
And I mean, I've seen, that's why I like her so much and respect her professionally, is that there's a lot of times that I haven't seen that, where people want a new slate. They haven't asked, have you ever been to anywhere, and do you have anything? That's the stuff of their life.
Yeah.
And so it's so accepting and so beautiful when you can take a really old rug and put something new on it and things like that. I mean, gosh, the houses sing when that happens. When it's all bought from one store or a couple of different places and it has no story. Those houses don't have much energy.
It feels flat.
Yes,
Yeah,
it feels
that's
a little
right.
bit flat.
You know, Bill and I getting married late in life here, we had, to bring our stuff together.
Right.
And we decided energetically to get some new furniture so that we weren't bringing furniture in together, but some of our artwork and some of the things that we already had we really liked. And he is really drawn to Native American artwork. And I'm drawn to Far Eastern artwork. And when we put that together, it's amazing how similar it is.
Boy, I bet that's true.
It's amazing how it flows when we put it together in a very unique way. So it was interesting for us because
it makes both pieces even resonate better. I'll bet, right? It's nice.
So it still allows for each of us to have a background, but also some new stuff.
Yeah.
So what do you do with difficult? I know what you did with a difficult. One of my husbands. remember when you came over to the house that Dick and I had on Camelback Road, and we were going to ask you to help us, and she said, "Okay, no," because he was difficult, and she read that right away, and she didn't want it to affect our friendship. I mean, I knew what she was doing, but what do you do with difficult people like that?
It's extraordinary because I don't remember things that I say, and then people tell me like that. I really need to calm down and remember what I say. I will say that most of the clients, they're not so difficult as, first of all, they've ended up having quite the life. They've built their own life, and so they've had to have a lot of opinions about a lot of things. They're leaders in society, in this community, and things like that. So they're strong-minded, but they're also incredibly uncomfortable at times because this is an entire arena they know nothing about. And so then you have to say to them, I swear I have your back. Not only in showing up to each meeting really prepared, incrementally you have to build the confidence to say, trust me, try to, know that every time you come here, I'm going to be really prepared, and I'm going to try to really get inside of what you need by my sketching. And many times I say, I can sketch, and that's my best gift here beyond a couple others of just trusting my heart. And I can sketch until you say yes. I can build a model until you say yes. So we can keep ripping these roofs off and raising them and lowering them. And that difficult, quote unquote, difficult person isn't difficult. They're just leaders. They're strong-minded. They have to be. That's kind of how they made the money to be able to do these things.
And the energy of money is interesting. Because money is energy. And what I have always found is the self-made men that have made money on their own are gracious and wonderful to work with.
Amazing.
That's what I've always found.
I've been so blessed.
What is one of the most fun rooms
like
to design, both architecturally and interior-wise?
The kitchen for me.
Oh yeah, kitchen, absolutely.
Yeah. I love a kitchen that works right. It's a workhorse. It's got to be a muscle. It has to be. We know it's where everybody's going to be.
And I love to organize it. In fact, it's almost too much so.
Right down to the dishes.
Dishes,
I had
knives,
to go out and get a brand new set of dishes in the new house. I needed new dishes. That's my thing. So right down to the dishes in the kitchen.
Absolutely.
What about the bathroom? That's one of my favorite places.
Well, for restaurants, I actually like bathrooms almost. I mean, I like the restaurant, but I love kind of knocking your socks off when you go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Just men and women to be completely like, okay, somebody spent some time in here thinking of some new idea. I mean, you only get one shot, and for them to come back to their booth or table and say, did you go to the bathroom yet? That is an option for me. I want that to happen. So I love bathrooms.
It's interesting with we've gone away from bathtubs.
Yes.
And lots of people now, especially as we get older, just choosing to do showers. And not even have a bathtub. So, but it's still a beautiful place. It's always nice. I've had couples. One of the funny things I've had is I've had a few clients where they had certain boundaries or that they had to have. They each had their own water closet. So I've done a number of homes where it was the men's closet and the women's closet. They wanted to have their own separate water closets. different, their vanities and where they are in their showers and how they all work. It's an interesting, but
Have you ever had the ones that want to have separate bathrooms?
Oh yeah.
oh yeah, absolutely,
Lots of times.
absolutely, lots of
And
times.
they share space. I've had more people say we have had so many important meetings in this bathroom, and thank
Yes.
God. And we did one together, and so many decisions are made in those 3 to 5 minutes in the morning. You're brushing your teeth, and you're trying to figure out where Junior's going to go to school, what's going on with the other one. Are you going to be ready for tonight? Those moments have to work effortlessly. You don't Architecture and interior design can't get in the way in order for it to really work.
Yeah,
And
Bill sits.
we're very
Bill
conscious of
sits
it.
while and talks to me while I put my makeup on in the
Nice.
morning.
It's so
That's
great.
it. And one of our greatest joys is to lay on our bed and watch our grandson in the bathtub because he puts goggles on. He dives. His little butt goes.
So cute.
Yeah.
That's great.
So people forget that bathrooms are important like that. They don't realize that.
And
Think of
there's
all
been a
those memories
combination.
you
Yeah,
have in your
there's been a
bathroom.
combination of dressing rooms, closets, and the bathrooms.
Yeah.
So it's almost become a whole other area where it's become this, closet, dressing room, his bathroom, her bathroom, but where it's almost like a kitchen. It's like a personal kitchen.
It does become like that. Duff, tell them about your bathroom.
Which one?
The Lennon John.
Oh yeah, that was good. That was fun.
Duffy has a Lennon John.
Well, that's decoration. My husband has been a huge Beatles fan since the Beatles came out, and we have collected things over the years. And we aren't really big collectors, and so we have all kinds of Beatles paraphernalia, books, I don't know, lithographs, all kinds of things. And we have one bathroom, and I got a little sign for Pat that says the Linen John. And so and inside is literally everything is Beatles.
It's got a yellow submarine
It's got
shower.
I just found a little yellow submarine little
bath mat.
I want to tell you, I've contributed to that bathroom when you get
Yes.
gifts.
That's great.
And it's really kind of fun, and people go in and they just want to look at it because I've got the little rubber things of all of the characters from what is it, from Yellow Submarine and all of. So it's just a fun place. And when people go into it, they go, "Oh my God!" and they look at the different things. And I have lyrics and where the toilet, the WC is you sit down, and right across from that we have from the bottom of the wall to the top of the wall, all lyrics.
Nice. Great.
From John Lennon and Paul McCartney. That were lithographs.
Sometimes that kind of stuff to me is the best energy in a house. That whimsical,
delight,
that kitschy
delightful
stuff that just says this is us or this is
Right.
I love that.
Right. That's so important.
We have a cabin up on the Provo River in Utah, and a part of that cabin off outside is the outhouse that was in the cement is the WGA, the workers.
Workers WPA.
WPA, yeah, workers, yeah, and that's actually in the stone, so it's grandfathered in this outhouse. Well, this outhouse is the most fun place to go because my husband and his brother have put all this memorabilia all the way around it. I mean, funny, fun things that are like the little hula girls, and there's Christmas lights in there, and there's all these fun things like how to measure the fish and other things and all these really kitschy, really fun. But you sit there and you actually
super entertained.
Totally, completely entertained. And I've got pictures of it, and it's a fun thing. But again, that reminds me of that. Why not? That's one of the places that you can have fun.
And it should be fun. Our master bath is utilitarian, and this is just fun. And when people visit and go in there, they go, "Oh my God!" And lots of books. So and they will stay in there for a long time.
Are people now living in their houses? Do you know what I mean? Like people didn't live in their houses before; they just had rooms that no one went into. Do you know what I mean? Like, are people?
Yeah.
We have a front room, a living room, a family room kitchen combination. We have a loft. We have 4 bedrooms. We live in all of our house. We live in every room of our house. We don't just sit in the family room. We sit in the living. I mean, do people live in their houses these days?
I make sure of it. when I'm
You
going,
do.
I do.
Well
I
put.
make sure of it that they do. In fact, a good story about that is I helped a athlete, a professional athlete with their home, and they had just moved here and a brand new house, and we were walking through what they wanted to do and everything, and they had this beautiful front room, living room, and I said, "Will you ever use this room?" And he said, "Probably not." And I said, "Okay, let's make this into," because he had friends, but they would come in from other professional sports, and had friends from all over the country. And I said, "What if we made this into your pool room?" So we ended up buying this beautiful antique billiards table, and we put it in the middle, put some great chairs around it with big fireplace, and that's what they walked in, because they lived in their family room with the TV, and they had small children, and they had their dining room. But I said, let's make that, and they loved it. I mean, his friends would come over from all over, and that's where they'd hang out, and it ended up being a great spot. They never would have used
A living room.
a living room. They
Yeah,
never would have used
I
it.
think game rooms are great because you
Yes.
got them for the kids. Everybody can go in and play one thing or another. It's great fun.
I've had quite a few houses, like in the last 10 years, where the children have left. The house is big. They haven't been in the second floor, if there is one, in many of the rooms. I've suggested that they knock most of the house down. They stopped talking to me for a couple of days. One guy on a plane, I said, "Why don't you just knock half the house down?" And he was like, "Okay, I got to get my magazine because this girl's nuts." By the end of the airplane trip, I had a house. I had another project. We knocked half the house down. So I've made many houses smaller. They love the lot. They love the location. They want to have their home where they can talk to their wife and they can sit down in the bathroom. Make your bathroom bigger. Make your bedroom whatever size it is, but take out some of it. Make it outdoor living space, patios and landscaping, and pay more money on your landscape bill than you do on your air conditioning bill. And it's been remarkable in the quality of their relationship. I will say, several people have said, we were on the verge of going somewhere else apart. And this move to pull us together, even when they've had kids, has saved their marriage and their family. And I didn't set out to do that. I had a fairly good inkling that, all the kids are going to hide in the rooms and mom and dad are going to go to their different places. And I was like, maybe it's time you just come into a smaller home and have to talk to each other.
Well, that's why a lot of people downsize because they don't live in most of the house.
Right.
Or if they do, they live separately in most of the house.
Yeah. It's amazing this is a huge responsibility, and I don't think either of us take it even remotely lightly. She's funnier than I am, but we can also be a little lighthearted in the whole thing. But it is at the end of the day that you have to try to really exceed their expectations and things that they don't know. And in my world, it's a little bit of thoughtfully getting them to have a much better quality of life in what we do, if we're renovating their house or if we're doing a brand new home.
Spiritually speaking, what goes on in your house is a reflection of what goes on within yourself. And that old saying, cleanliness is next to godliness. If you go into a messy house, the person's messy on the inside. If things are in disarray and tchotchked, that's how the person feels about themselves on the inside. I mean, some people just don't know. I don't mean it that way, but people who you go into a house and they have a room with a kind of a bare naked room. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that means that inside themselves they don't know how to put themselves together because they don't know how to put the space around them together.
Right.
And actually, there's a little exercise that we do in hypnosis where you take somebody under hypnosis up a road and to a fence and to a house and to the interior of a house and what the exterior of the house is, and it reflects how the person feels inside. You have them walk along and find a cup and see what the cup is, whether they keep it or whether they throw it away, and it means how they feel about money. Have them find a key, and whether they keep it or throw it away, it means how they feel about themselves. The house reflects what they mean. A fence what the house reflects what they feel. a fence is how they do their boundaries.
Amazing.
Some people have barbed wire fences, and
Mm.
they kind of come out of hypnosis real proud, like, my fence was barbed wire. And I say, well, that means your boundaries are too rigid, you know. And they're like, oh, you know.
Right.
And some people have small fences that you can just jump over. Well, that means your boundaries are too loose. Some people have houses that have grand porches. That means those are the people that are welcoming. So, you know, one person that I knew very well, that was actually a relative of mine, said that when he went to the house, there was nothing there. And I can tell you that reflected truly, because he's a very, you know, closed down person. So it's very interesting what this all means energetically, spiritually. And that's one of the reasons that we had you on the show, because of the spiritual aspects of what you do. Like, a lot of people don't think architecture and design, interior decorating is actually a part, an extension of the soul, the spirit, the essence of who you are. And it means something.
Yeah, because where you live is where you go to rejuvenate. With me, my house is, you know, I have a little courtyard outside. You know, I love that little courtyard.
Absolutely.
It's where I go to have my tea in the morning. It's where I love to sit down with Pat and have a glass of wine at night.
Right.
But
it's
that's
rejuvenation
great.
is so important.
And you go to your home to be able to get away from the everyday, and that's what sustains you.
One of the things I'll say that is people have said you take the daily angst out of our relationship, because I try very benignly to say, okay, where do you drop your stuff when you walk in the front door, and where do you drop your stuff, and where do the kids drop their stuff? And most of the time they say everything's on the island in the kitchen, and I'm trying to make dinner. Everybody starts getting annoyed with each other, and they don't even know what they're getting annoyed at, but they've all been rushing around all day.
Chaos, right?
So I try to have it from the moment they walk in. Everyone has a place to put their stuff, and it is remarkable that we are kind of animalistic in that. If somebody tells John to put his stuff over here and Julie to put her stuff here and the children to put their stuff in these cubbies, it's amazing how they do it right from the beginning, and how much more Mom has the kitchen island to prepare on, or Dad, whoever's cooking. And they've turned to me and said, living in the house is like all those little nasty, annoying things we used to start biting each other about.
Goes smooth.
Gone.
Do you know what we did? You guys would be interested in this. We took some wedding pictures and we blew them up big like this, and we have a giant wall that goes up, and we put 5 of them on the wall, and then we put floating shelves with all our family's books all around that one. And it's a very, very big wall, and it has the TV on it and everything. So to me, that wall said it all. This is family room, And I've never done that before. I've honestly never done that before, and it turned out to be great. But
and you were ready to do it in this stage. It is interesting, the chapters of people's lives. I think I give them some peace when I say, well, those first 10 years in the house, and then the children are 0 to 10, now they're 10 to 20. Those are really different chapters, and you live and entertain so differently in those different chapters.
You brought something up that made me remind me, is that we've always had in the past, there's 2 entryways into your house. There's the entry that your guests come in, and there's the entry that you come in every single day, your family comes in. And so many times, historically, they've been, washer and dryer have been there. I mean, it's the back porch. I mean, there's nothing nice about it. So one of the things that I always do is I always try to keep their entry is the garage door when they come in. So that's a nice place to come into.
Right.
I mean, it's like that's your house welcoming you. It may not. It's a little bit more casual. It's not as, but it's
But it's not
home.
the mudroom.
My husband did that first. He redid the surface of the garage first. He has pictures up in the garage and things all set nicely in there. It's as neat as a pin. You walk in there and into the garage, and it leads you into that
house.
Right.
Yeah. I think
and you
that's
leave
really
it.
important.
I mean, we've both done that together. Is to create physically small foyers that are lovely at that point, instead of walking through the laundry room.
Right.
Just remodel the house to do it, to have this nice area to drop things, and to have family photographs and a message board of, oh, well, before I even get in the house, I see that he or she is gone, things like that.
Yeah.
It's amazing how your life and your daily life, which is what I really try to be concentrating on a lot of times when I'm designing houses, we
think we both
can
do.
sort of mobilize in a better way for them.
You're both into the garden, the outside too. Like I've heard you both. We have a window that looks directly at our neighbor's dish, their satellite dish, and the side of their house. And it was, what are we going to do? Well, what Bill did was he made a grotto. He made a platform and he painted it and he put bamboo up around it. He put a Buddha in it. And he's going to put plants in there. So now when you look out that window, you see our grotto and not the neighbor.
Beautiful.
And so that was kind of a little piece of feng shui
layer.
that we did.
You can layer in front of you. Absolutely.
So, well,
Huge
you know
difference.
what, you guys, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We've got about 4 minutes, and I just want you to tell everybody how to get a hold of you. If they, want to talk to you about interior design or architecture or doing something. So if you could tell everybody how to get a hold of you.
Sort of just in Phoenix, for those that live here or travel here, we're basically not very far from the airport. We're on Indian School and 36th Street. Our phone number is that which Melinda's already given you, 602-840-2553. Karen can give her number to you too. And then I also want to say that one of the things we built this office for is to create this community space. And so you're all more than welcome to come, even if you just want to see what the design studio looks like, which is surprising that many people have never been in architecture and interior design studios. So you're always welcome. We have kids from grammar school all the way up come through all the time. And we also have a conference room that we're opening to anybody and everybody that wants to rent this room, with a really pretty garden for their own book clubs, for meetings, for breakfasts, things like that, just so that we can have a lot more community,
energy.
energy.
The energy of getting back to community. That's what this world needs right now. That's what the United States needs right now. And by the way, angels that are on the East Coast, New York, Pennsylvania, don't hesitate to call because, they travel.
Totally.
So what's your phone number?
And the address is 3511
East
Indian
Indian
School Road. Yes. It's Karen Rapp Interiors, and you can get hold of me at 602-956-3575. And we're very happy to have you come. Thanks.
Are we all set, Bill?
Thank you.
Can we say something before we leave?
Oh, the phone numbers again.
Okay, he's giving us this. Okay, give your phone numbers again.
602-956-3575.
And 602-840-2553.
And before we have to finish up, we finally got the book.
Yay!
So we have Diary of a Mad Medium.
That's me.
And that's her. And it's going to be available
now. Amazon. However, we are having a book launch with James Van Prague on November 16th at Changing Hands Bookstore at 6 p.m. Changing Hands in Tempe. And please join us. You guys need to join us at our event at the Omni Resort, the Mauna Lucia, the 17th and 18th, where we have an exciting little DVD documentary thing that will be available afterwards for what we're teaching, which is going to be absolutely awesome. And I'm going to be on James's radio show. We missed being on his radio show last time because he got sick. But we're going to be, when is that, Bill?
November 14th at 11 a.m.
November 14th at 11 a.m. So from Dr. Duffy?
Dr. Duffy is at 602-910-0215 for any type of hypnosis or any type of human sexuality issues. Let's just put it that way.
All right. Well, thank you, girls. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. It was really fun.
Yeah,
Really
had a good
appreciate
time.
it.
Yes, thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Have a good night, everybody. Night.
Bye-bye.